As summer now comes to an end and fall is very, very close to beginning here, this is the last official day of summer on this Tuesday edition of Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now and all throughout the Now family of networks. We have one order of business for this show, and this is to answer some questions looming around the Pitt football program, discuss the state of the Pitt football program and head coach Pat Narduzzi, and to really, really dive into especially my co-host's column here as he went after the program, and really for good reason. Again, Pitt following a loss a week after a big win. So Pitt losing to Western Michigan a week after a big win on the road against Tennessee. What went on? What's going on? Can this be resurrected? What are the thoughts now? And how should the fans feel? That's something we're going to address. How should the fans feel right now after that loss? As you would guess it, that's Mike Vukovcan. I'm Mike Asti. And of course, Mic'd Up is presented by Martin Lawn Services. You can contact Doug Martin at 412-849-5894. And Mike, without wasting any more time, you had a column. You were pretty clear with your thoughts there. We had a post-game show up. You weren't a part of that one, but you had your column. You made it clear with your feelings. So Pitt loses to Western Michigan. Points were scored. Kenny Pickett threw up 6 TDs, tied a team record, but they lose. It's after a big win. Narduzzi also speaks to the media yesterday now, and he takes the blame. He takes it on himself, but he also says the team wasn't prepared, which I thought was just insane to have that be the situation. Just what are your thoughts? I guess I'll hand the mic to you and let you go in terms of your thoughts on the state of the Pitt football program right now.
Well, I want to start off by saying this is not a personal attack on Pat Narduzzi, the person. This is not something that I'm doing to draw clicks. This is because I had a few people,
Absolutely. No.
99% of the people that read it agreed with what I said. The handful of people. The deal is this.
And you were optimistic before the season. You got flack for that.
Yeah. I fell in to the Kool-Aid. The Pat Narduzzi is not a bad football coach.
Right.
He's an okay football coach. And that's my point of this, is that he's had 7 years to show what he can do and to be something other than an okay football coach. He hasn't proven that, and I don't think he's going to prove that. There's no evidence to suggest that he will.
Right.
The deal is, if Pitt wants to ever become better than a 7 or 8 win football program, they need to move on from Pat Narduzzi. That's the gist of what I said. If they're, I don't know what their goals, aspirations.
Yeah, that's different with every program, right?
Yeah. If they're okay with this and they think that that's a pipe dream and then it's never going to happen, right, and that they never have a chance to be inside the top 20 regularly or contend and possibly win the ACC championship, then stick with Pat Narduzzi, because I've also been very clear that I'm not in favor of firing people just to fire, because I think that creates more instability than anything.
Mm-hmm.
However, after 6 or 7 years, after the things continually to happen, as you mentioned, losing to games you shouldn't, saying things like that, and just his stubbornness on why they lose. Alan had a great 5 takes yesterday. It's become clear that despite how many times they lead the ACC in sacks,
right, and
have some good performances, he has yet to adjust his defense. This defense isn't going to work unless you have NFL type people all over the place, like Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State. And he's not going to have that here at Pitt. And you allow a inferior program like Western Michigan to look like they were, a top 5 program. You can't, and it happens. We ran down a list of 400 to 500 yard opponents that have done that to Pitt over the years. This is not a one-time thing.
No.
It happens to a lot of opponents against Pitt because of his stubbornness to change what he does, adjust his defense. He'll say at press conferences like he did yesterday, it's on me, we'll make changes.
And he said, I
There
should have
will be
made
no
adjustments.
changes.
Right.
Yeah. There will be no changes. It'll be what he does,
right,
because that's who he is. And because of that, they'll continue to lose games like that they should. And because of that, there'll always just be a middle of the run program that the fans can't buy into. They'll have 20, 30,000 people at Heinz Field. And that's what they are. And if that's what they want to be, okay. I just personally think Heather Lyke and those people have higher aspirations than that. Everything she's touched over at Pitt as far as other coaches go,
right.
She's had the Midas touch as far as coaching hirings and the way she envisions things. I think she wants to be a champion. And I'm just sorry, with him as the head coach, I just don't think that is ever going to happen.
And she has built up the entire athletic program. This is going even to the volleyball program. Of course, Jeff Capel trying to turn things around in the basketball program, and that seems to be going in the right direction. The Pitt athletic program has been improved. The Midas touch has been there for Heather Lyke, but the football program has seemingly stayed this course in neutral. Is it even worse for you that Pat Narduzzi was brought in as a defensive guy, a defensive guru, and the issue has been not churning enough success defensively? There have been some standout defensive players, Damar Hamlin, etc. And now you get to a point where the offense is clicking. There are weapons there. Kenny Pickett looks as good as ever. He really, really does. That team let him down. Sucks that occurred, especially this situation. And for the defense to collapse and be as bad, and then to not see the adjustments, and for him to admit there should have been halftime adjustments, but they weren't made. Is that even worse than if this team was just not scoring points like they have done in past years, because he's supposed to be a defensive guru? When are we going to see that?
Well, for this year and possibly last year, yes. When you have the type of people that they've had in the last few years, you expect, their defenses have been good, but
right.
They should be better. They shouldn't be still struggling against RPO offenses and teams that just air raid them. But that's not their only problem during the 7 years. The problem hasn't entirely, and as you mentioned, they finally have an NFL type quarterback.
Yeah.
God help me, what would happen if Kenny Pickett wasn't there Saturday?
Oh, Lord.
With the way, and here's the thing. The problem also has been their offense and offensive line, and I'm going to address this today in a column. They've yet to fix that. That's kind of getting looked over because of the defensive performance, but in 3 years he hasn't been able to figure out, and whether it's because he's too loyal to his coaches, whether or not he doesn't know how to game plan it. They can't run the football. It's almost like the Pittsburgh Steelers. We said that at the beginning of the year, and it's worse because it's 3 years. They cannot run the football, and when Ken Pickett's not there next year, what are you going to do? You're going to have a first-year head coach,
right?
And you're going to want to run the ball, and they cannot. And his answers to that, he's in denial at press conferences over the years that this team can run the football. They cannot. They have 4-star guys in their recruiting classes over the last few years that sit on the bench, that do nothing on this roster. I don't know what it is. I've talked to some people. I'm going to address it a little bit today. It's probably the scheme in which you're doing it, which would lead to the Mark Whipple and Dave Borbley as the run game coordinators and the offensive coordinators. But the problems run deeper than just giving up 500 and some yards against Western Michigan.
Right.
It's just an overall things that you see that are wrong, and he hasn't shown the ability to adjust and fix them in years, because it's a continual problem. And to me, when you show that you can't do that, you show that you lack as a head coach, and I think he lacks as a head coach.
Yeah, again, Pat Narduzzi, a good coach, but there's a difference between being a good coach and being a good enough to get you the next level head coach. And yes, he's done well at times in recruiting, but it matters what you do on the field. And when you have I think the timing is also really, really bad when he's had these moments over the years. You have big wins, and this was a big win against Tennessee on the road. People excited, people talking about this could be the first year where he wins 9 games with Kenny Pickett being as good. And then to turn around and have that be the loss against Western Michigan, who, no disrespect to them, they're good for the MAC, but it is an inferior opponent. Pitt was, I think, favored 15 points, and some people thought it should have been more. You certainly should have won at the very, very least. And as much as I agree, the running game hasn't been there. Vincent Davis isn't getting the rock enough, but he's not clearly the guy. We've talked about that before. You've been touching on that with me and others for years, that Vincent Davis doesn't scream to be that featured back, but whoever you're going to give it to, you got to try to make somebody the featured back. But the points were still there, and the defense certainly didn't get it done.
I believe they've had
really, really bad.
Years, in 2.5 years, 3 years
right
now, they've had 2 100-yard rushers.
Since James Conner. Yeah.
How do you do that? The theory always is, when you have a good passing game, that opens up your run. They help each other.
Right.
If the defenses aren't going to be stuffed up in the offensive or up in the box.
Right.
If they're worried about your passing game, they're dropping people back. It should mean you're able to run the football. That's not the case with them. Kenny Pickett throws 400 yards, and they're still their leading rusher is getting 20, 30 yards a game.
Yeah, or it's Pickett. Some games it's actually been Pickett as the leading rusher.
Right.
If you had to bet me right now, gun to my head, on anyone on Pitt's team, can anyone on Pitt's roster offensively get 100 yards in a game? I would actually bet, the only chance I could see is Pickett in a shootout scrambling for the yards, because he's had 40 yards rushing. He's been the leading rusher in several of these games, and it almost gets you to a point of it's more impressive what Kenny Pickett's doing with the offensive line the way it is, without a running game. And then to have these numbers, it is a shame, because I actually said this on the postgame show. It feels like Kenny Pickett's legacy is going to go down as maybe the most underrated Pitt player ever, because he's been great. He's really at the point now where he is an NFL quarterback. He is a leader of this team, but the team's success has just not been there. It's not been his fault, but he's kind of been let down, and he was certainly let down on Saturday.
And the other thing that this does, and this is when I address this, I'm not saying that he should be fired today or during the season.
Yeah, middle of the season's rough too. Yeah.
All I'm saying is what's this done now, and you can see this on Twitter, and you see it, anyone that follows them now. What's this do to the fans now?
Gone.
They've checked
Balloon
out.
Popped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly. And you do that year after year after year. It's going to be it's going to be 10,000 people, 15,000 people there on Saturday. If you're undefeated, not that, they're going to get 50 or 60,000, but you're going to have positive talk. You're going to have people, you're going to have fans into it. Right now, they're not going to get back into it unless Pitt shows, and then you're still not going to get everyone back, because there's people that still aren't going to believe that, maybe if you beat Georgia Tech and then go beat Virginia Tech the following week, maybe, you're going to get some people to come back and buy in again. But, that takes work, and that takes, executing, and, they haven't shown the ability to do that.
No, and I was actually going to get there. So mic'd up here, presented by Martin Lawn Services, Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti. We are talking Pitt football, the state of the Pitt program. Even head coach Pat Narduzzi, after his press conference, after Pitt's loss to Western Michigan, that bad loss a week after the big win over Tennessee. You obviously have kind of a game that you're figuring is a gimme victory, although none of those are guaranteed for Pitt these days. You have Georgia Tech. Then you get into really the meat of the ACC conference with Virginia Tech, who now is vulnerable coming off their loss to West Virginia, although that might make them even hungrier. Miami, who's also looked vulnerable. Clemson, who is still Clemson, but not necessarily as good as they've been in recent years. They crawled out of a game recently, so they look like they're potentially vulnerable. For me, it feels like there was so much excitement entering the season. And you can say what you want about the attendance. And I know there's been that annoying on-campus stadium debate that's also churned the last day or so. That's the most annoying Pittsburgh sports topic for me. It just will never go away. They're not going to have one. But that's been the conversation right now. So leaving that alone right now, the situation with the attendance is what it is. The stadium is what it is. However, there was excitement. People were predicting 9, 10 wins. We are a group text with fellow media. Somebody threw, I won't say the name, somebody threw 11 wins out there. It was just out of control, the predictions. But honestly, Mike, when you looked at the schedule, you looked at Kenny Pickett, you looked at the team, you looked at, especially after the big win over Tennessee, it wasn't out of control because of what I also said. The conference was weaker than it's even been the last couple of years. Teams are vulnerable for that big upset. Give the rest of them wins that you're supposed to take care of business. At least make it 9, get in a decent bowl game, not get in these mediocre games. Make it a special year, first under Narduzzi since the division title year potentially. But since that's not occurred now, is there anything – I'll ask this 2 ways. Number one, is there anything that Narduzzi can do the rest of this year to save his job for you? Not Heather Lyke, but for you. And then number 2, is there anything that Pitt can do the rest of this season to save it in terms of fan perception, meaning if they get a big upset win over Miami, Virginia Tech, or if somehow they beat Clemson, because they certainly are vulnerable to an upset and Kenny Pickett might be the best quarterback they face all year. Does that save things for the year and make it a special season kind of still? Or will Pitt fans still say, what you know some will say, well, look, if you could do that to Clemson, if you can get that big win, if you can get 8 of these other victories, why did you lose to Western Michigan, ruin it in the middle of the year, and then have us out of that situation that we should have been? We should have been 9 or 10 wins and still bring some negativity. Anything that can happen for this team to save it for the fans, and can Narduzzi save it in any way for you the rest of the year? We're still early in the season as Pitt has offered that balloon popping.
Well, there's still 9 games left. So that's
right.
That's why I say this is not something you do during the year.
Right, like USC with Clay Helton. Right.
Yeah. That's different. 9 games left. Yeah, of course. With the fans, get to the ACC championship game.
Okay.
That would be for me and the fans. I think. I think finishing with 8 wins. If they finish with 8 wins again,
does it matter how you get there though? Because does it matter if if you win a division that's weaker?
No.
I'm just asking because those teams have looked vulnerable that they could get upset recently. So if they lose 2 or 3 games.
This weaker thing that goes around about the ACC, I've said this for years too. Is it a powerhouse SEC? No, but nobody is. You go to the Pac-12. When people address that, nobody says, it was a weak Pac-12.
Right.
The Big 12.
Right.
You have a couple teams in there. Annually. You have Oklahoma this year, and then after that,
I think some say the depth of the ACC is not even to the Big 10 level, and that's maybe the annoyance because we've talked about before.
I say the Big 10 is the second best conference, and then after that, I think they're all the same. They're all the same.
Sure, so, there's elite teams, there's a middle of the road, and then there's a drop off.
Right, exactly. Right. So I think there's 2 really good conferences in college football, really good conferences. I border on the Big 10 sometimes being a little bit too pumped up.
Could be.
They're better than the 3rd and 4th and 5th conferences. But other than that, ACC, Big 12, Pac-12,
okay.
they're all
ACC championship game, even if you lose in that game, obviously ACC to Clemson, that would save the fans. Right.
Yeah, you make it there. Fans will be happy.
Right.
I'll have a little bit more respect for what they've done. It depends. If they get there by winning 8 games, then no. But if they
that's what I'm asking you. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Because, for example, they could get there if they win the Coastal, even if that means that these other teams have lost a bunch and they don't have that great of a resume. But they also could get there by being legitimately the second best team in the conference behind only Clemson. There's 2 ways to get there based on the rules of the conference. It's not
I'm assuming that they get there with 9 wins.
Okay.
If they don't,
it could go the other way though. Right.
Then I think I don't. That means nothing to me.
Okay, but if they legitimately get there, where they're the second best team in the conference,
then I'll give them some credit.
Okay.
I'll still have doubts. I probably still won't change my opinion. Fans might. I
That
won't.
Western Michigan loss wouldn't sting more because then if you're that good, you could get in the New Year's Six if they would have potential. That could bump them out of that still.
Well, you can still get it. You can still get in the New Year's if
you could get in there, but
if you win the ACC.
Figuring they lose the ACC title game, I guess.
Yeah, but the ACC championship game,
if they win that game,
the loser is not gonna play in a major under any circumstance. They're not going to play in a major.
Probably not, unless you have 10 wins. Unless you have 10 wins and you had which maybe then would stack the Western Michigan.
Yeah, but to get to your point, get back to your point is
okay. But that would
I'm not going to change my opinion because I've seen it for 7 years. I'm not going to. I just think the program.
It's unlikely to occur. What we're saying.
Yeah, the program you could use a reboost, re-energize, a new face.
That's the word, a re-energized. Yes.
Yeah, a new voice instead of his, stuff he says every year and really doesn't mean it. It's on me. Okay. He knows internally he's not saying that to his coaches. There's no way he's taking blame for that.
Right.
That's just a public, thing just to,
I mean, what else is he going to say?
People. Right. That's what I mean. The people that credit, he takes blame. No, he says that because not him, but everybody else. So I don't know what's left. I don't know what's going to happen, but I hate this. Because I like some of the guys over there, and I know that meaning coaches, and because I know if you get rid of the head coach, all those other guys have to go too.
Yep.
So that's tough. But I'm just looking at this objectively, somebody that's been here longer than any of the assistants aside from Tim Salem and Andre Powell. I've seen this for 7 years with him.
Yeah.
And I don't think things are ever going to change under him. It's
so
mainly because of his personality, arrogance, and stubbornness.
Yeah, and I think that's the other issue. And obviously, if you're winning, it doesn't matter. But it's not just like Pitt has underachieved. It's not just like Pitt's defense has had these issues. It's not just like Pitt has had these really bad losses mixed in with some good wins through the years, and they can't get yet to that next level. He's also not been that friendly in a way to fans, to media. Yes, he takes losses and says his blame's on him. But then my reaction initially is sitting there watching saying, yeah, it's on you. But how could you possibly not have your team prepared a week after beating Tennessee on the road? Like, it's just dumbfounding how that could occur. So it's not exactly like anyone's thrilled with him as a guy. Not necessarily. I mean, again, as a person, he's fine, but just as the coach and just the environment there, I do think what you said, having him removed would create a re-energizing. I think Pitt football needs a re-energizing, especially if they don't get the ACC title game this year, which no one's going to predict now after that loss to Western Michigan. No one's going to be impressed by New Hampshire, even Georgia Tech. It's going to have to be, can you get one of those major upset wins during the gauntlet of a schedule? You might even have to get two of them to really change the course of this year. Kenny Pickett would have to lead the way. But no one's believing in that now. The balloon has officially been popped. So in conjunction with the fans, would that if they would hypothetically get to the ACC title game, would that in any way save Narduzzi for you? Would you still say, look, I might still want to re-energizing here?
No,
at this point, it's been 7 years.
I was reminded. I actually wrote a column last year that drew some attention. I forgot that I thought he should have been removed last year. I'm not changing my opinion.
Right, and that was going into this year with all
going into this year. Yeah, I just see the same thing, and it'll just happen, and people, there's not enough buzz, there's not enough attention, and I think that's part of the job of the head coach. He has to know that coming in is, that's part of it on you, the way you get people to care about your program. And another problem he has is standoffish. The way he treats people,
right?
He might not. He treats us like it's a professional, like it's the Steelers. People are going to care about the Steelers no matter what.
No matter what.
That's not the case with Pitt. And he doesn't have to be buddies with the media, but just his demeanor in general, and
he comes off like it's a burden to do more than coaching.
Yeah, and the availability he makes with players and just everything to get people
Right.
talking about your program. It's like trying to get into Fort Knox over there.
Right.
And as I said, this isn't Alabama. Alabama is going to get people caring about them no matter what. Pitt has to do everything they can to get people to care about their program,
Right.
and he doesn't understand that part of the job, but nor has he ever understood that as part of the
No,
job.
no, and I think the issue is too. There does feel like there's a little bit of an arrogance vibe of it's Pitt football. As Tony Dorsett, as Dan Marino, you got to care no matter what we do. We're the Steelers here. We're the same. This isn't the '70s. This isn't the '80s anymore. College football is even more popular. But maybe there's a reason why Pitt football is not more popular, and it's not just about not having one. That these issues have occurred prior to him, but it does not feel like he is excited about anything else but coaching, that he does come off as he is burdened by the rest of the job, that he is not going to sit out there. Like, for example, we've talked about this with West Virginia and trying to rebuild that program. Neil Brown's 3 years in. They now have a big win. But prior to that big win, I had said that if he doesn't get a big win soon, they're going to have to think about potentially getting him in a little bit of a warmer seat, only 3 years in. But he is at very least going around kissing baggies, hugging everyone. He single-handedly, first time going in there, made sure that Pat McAfee or whoever, Mike Logan, they weren't welcome at the program before. He made sure they're all in. He basically acts like he's the mayor of the area as well as the football coach. But as we're saying, at a program like a West Virginia, at a Pitt, you got to be the mayor in addition to being the head football coach. You got to make the alums excited about you, that they're going to go on national shows like Pat McAfee did last night and say, I'm excited about West Virginia football. If you had a former Pitt player on there with Peyton and Eli, what would he be saying? It wouldn't be good, probably. So you want to avoid that situation. And yeah, it does seem like you need a re-energizing and need something else. Now, as we close up the show, and this is a loaded question, we're going to discuss this a lot more coming up, especially if things don't really improve. This will be constantly discussed. There's no real right answer to have, I guess, right now. And this is why some maybe didn't want to do it in the past, because if you do fire a head coach, you got to have a better answer. You got to have something that can re-energize the program. Any quick thoughts for you on if you are down for moving on from Pat Narduzzi at this point? Once again, things have not changed. Staying the course is hitting it in neutral. You want to re-energize. You want to move on. Any names at all for you that come to mind on something that would re-energize, of somebody that you would want in there? Obviously, we don't know about interest or what they would do or any financial decisions or anything like that, just very early. Any thoughts on anyone you'd want to replace Pat Narduzzi? You're smirking. Do you have that guy already in mind?
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't thought of it, but this is way. It could
be pie in the sky. I won't hold you to this.
No, I would. Two guys, Joe Moorhead, former offensive coordinator at Penn State, current offensive coordinator at Oregon, tremendous personality, tremendous offensive mind, tremendous recruiter from Western Pennsylvania. And the other guy would be 1B, would be Terrell Austin, the Steelers, with the Steelers. He is a guy that should be a head coach someplace, whether it be the NFL or college. He used to killer recruiter for Michigan back in the day.
Very underrated historic coach.
Yeah. Clean up recruiter, NFL experience, great personality.
Right.
Those would be two guys right there that if this ever does happen, they would be, their numbers would be on my speed dial.
Yeah, if you're Pitt, they should certainly be, and you got to think there'd be interest from them as well to step up to get that opportunity to try at
Terrell
the challenge.
Austin would, former Pitt player. Not that has to be a priority, but he's a guy that I'm a huge fan of, and I'm also a huge fan of Joe Moorhead. I think he's tremendous. He was at a bad situation at Mississippi State. That's a tough job down there in the SEC. He's now with Oregon, top 5 program in the country. He's leading their offense. When he was at Penn State, they had one of the better offenses. Knows what he's doing. He's modern. He's not archaic.
Yeah, he's modern. He's not archaic. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are two guys that, obviously there'd be probably a lot more, but we'll see if that happens. I doubt that it's going to happen. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. With college coaches, when it gets to college, it's more than just what the athletic director wants. It's
right.
Buyout. It's boosters. It's all
right.
that. I don't know what his buyout is and all that. So you're going to get at all of that. That's all going to factor in. But
sure.
Those are my thoughts right there.
Yeah, and those could definitely be two guys that I'm sure will be on the top of many Pitt fans' mind. The only counter to that, and we'll leave with this, is there might even be some that don't want a guy with so many Pittsburgh connections just because, for example, the Pitt basketball program went to Jeff Capel, not a Pittsburgh guy at all. Maybe you go the other direction to try to redo things. But the positive of having guys like that, and this was the issue with Pitt prior to Narduzzi, the only positive of having Narduzzi for so many years, Narduzzi did correct the instability with Paul Christ, et cetera, of having in 1 or 2 years, it was a revolving door of Pitt coaches after Dave Wannstedt, before Pat Narduzzi. If you have one of them, it feels like they would also want to stay the course, would want to be part of the challenge, and would want to be there. So that would be a positive thing as well, because this isn't like the USC job. You'd have to sell it a little bit as well.
Well, this is also a different job. This is not just your ordinary, and that person has to realize that as far as being in an NFL city.
Right. This isn't like you're on campus of a college town.
This is a pro town, and that person has to realize that. They have to know the Heinz Field factor. They have to know the attendance. They have to know the campus location in the city.
Right.
All that stuff. You got to have somebody that knows Pittsburgh.
That's true.
Pittsburgher. That would be big in my. That would be something that plays into. It wouldn't be the top two. It wouldn't be the top two factors for me. But it would be something that they need to realize what this job is. I don't want to keep talking about it because he's still the head coach right now. But if we do get to that day, we could expand upon that a little bit more, because this is not just your ordinary college job. This is
no.
It's a little bit different. There's some definite things that are factors that aren't positive that the coach has to. Be able to fight through.
Yeah, and again, it's a pro town. You're near other colleges, but you are the University of Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. There are differences there. It's not even like certain programs that are similar, like say again West Virginia. Even if they never win, they're going to have a lot of those fans will just be diehard forever, because that is the team. That's the team there. They're close. A lot of them are Steeler fans too. They're in the media market, but that is the state. If they lose, if they're not fans of that team, who are they going to be fans of? Pitt fans are not just going to be a Pitt fan just to do it. You got to have more than just the diehards. You are in the city. There's plenty else to do. The students got to get bussed in to go to the stadium. They're not going to want to get on that bus if this team is doing the same thing. There are a lot of complexities. You got to be willing to kind of be the mayor in a way and know this. That is a benefit of knowing the city, because yes, there are complexities. The only similar job I can think of in the country, which isn't on the level of prestige, I would think Pitt is above that, is Cincinnati, for example. And they're a top 10, but they're not in a major conference, and maybe they will be. Well, I guess they're going to the Big 12, but not currently.
UCLA.
UCLA is another one. Yeah, UCLA is even a better one because they're in the Pac-12, a major city. They have a lot else to go against them. It is a pro town. That's a Lakers. It's a basketball town there, not even a football town. At least this is a football town. But there's a lot of complexities, a lot of challenges that go on, because you're telling a recruit, instead of going 70 miles south or 4 hours east or a few hours west to these major programs in major conferences where you're going to play in a college town with a rockin' stadium and 30, 40, 50K, 100K for Penn State, come here and play in front of 25 in a city that likes other teams more. To sell them on that, you got to be able to sell them on the team winning, on what you can do for them. And it's not as easy as maybe it would have been. There are things you are up against right now. There are challenges. So you got to have that right guy And maybe that's helped Narduzzi stick around because they haven't felt they could get that right guy. But at this point, it's same old story, same old Pitt. There's reason to feel that way. There's reason to not believe. I can't blame anybody for not. We will see, though, moving forward, and it's going to be a few weeks before he can really change anyone's mind. It's not going to be next week. It's not going to be this week. It'll be 2-3 weeks before he can really say if they get an upset win over a ranked conference team, that might then allow this conversation to get a little better for him. That'll do it for this show. We had to cover all this. The state of the Pitt football program and Pat Narduzzi will be with you the rest of the week. Certainly head over to Pittsburgh Sports Now for more columns, more takes, more analysis from Mike Vukovcan, Alan Saunders, and the rest of the team over there. That'll do it for this last day of summer. Enjoy it. Before then, you can soak up those pumpkin spice lattes and go to the pumpkin patch. Fall will be, as Mike does right now, fall will be officially in the air starting tomorrow. Mic'd up here